Passing the U.S. citizenship test requires mastering a very specific 7-part sequence of events from the 1700s that built the United States. For over a century, the original 13 American colonies along the Atlantic coast operated under a system called salutary neglect. The British Crown mostly left them alone, allowing them to establish their own local laws and autonomous self-government. This chart shows the British national debt during the 18th century. After the French and Indian War ended in 1763, the British Empire faced an enormous financial crisis. You can see the vertical spike in debt as the costs of the conflict piled up. To pay off that deficit, the Crown pivoted its economic strategy. Parliament decided that the American colonies would bear the financial burden of the empire's recovery. Going from independent self-rule to acting as a royal ATM severed the deep trust that had connected the colonists to the British government. Question 77 on the civics test asks for one reason why the Americans declared independence. High taxes, specifically taxation without representation, is a primary answer. The Stamp Act placed a duty on almost every piece of printed paper, proving inescapable for the average colonist. Another accepted answer to question 77 is that the colonists did not have self-government. British officials began aggressively overriding colonial legislatures and dismantling local authority. The Crown also required colonists to board or quarter British soldiers directly inside their private homes. These relentless local pressures eventually spilled into the streets. In 1770, a confrontation in Massachusetts ended with British soldiers firing into a crowd of protesters, an event recorded as the Boston Massacre. By 1773, citizens retaliated with the Boston Tea Party, a highly coordinated act of economic sabotage against the Crown's trade monopolies. As protests turned into property damage and street violence, the relationship between the colonies and the Crown moved past the point of reconciliation. Parliament retaliated against Massachusetts by passing severe punitive laws known as the Intolerable Acts. Instead of crushing the protests, these laws pushed colonial leaders to unite, forming the Continental Congress. In 1775, the remaining diplomatic channels collapsed. The standoff ignited into open combat between colonists and British forces at the battles of Lexington and Concord. This answers question 76 on the citizenship test. Americans were now fighting the Revolutionary War, also known as the American Revolution, to win independence from Britain. Question 80 asks you to name one important event from this war. A critical turning point was George Washington crossing the icy Delaware River to mount a surprise attack. Surviving a multi-year continental war demanded a clear, unifying ideology to justify the immense human and financial cost of fighting. Colonists realized returning to the old system of lower taxes was no longer an option. They demanded a completely new model of society. European Enlightenment philosophers had been debating new forms of governance for decades. Thomas Paine took those dense academic ideas and translated them into plain language with his widely distributed pamphlet, Common Sense. The Continental Congress appointed a committee of 5 to draft a formal statement capturing these ideals. Question 78 asks who wrote this document. The primary author of it was Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson faced a massive challenge. He had to take any legal armed rebellion against the world's most powerful empire and legitimize it as a philosophically justified revolution for universal human dignity. Jefferson synthesized those Enlightenment ideals into a single definitive statement of national purpose, the Declaration of Independence. Question 79 asks when this document was adopted. Congress officially approved the text on July 4, 1776. As for its core function, which is question 8 on the test, the document did exactly what its title suggests. It formally announced and declared our complete independence from Great Britain. Question 9 asks you to name 2 rights found in the Declaration. The text states that all people are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, specifically listing life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Earlier philosophers like John Locke defined natural rights as life, liberty, and property. Jefferson modified that final point to the pursuit of happiness, placing the focus squarely on active civic participation and personal self-actualization. Jefferson's pivot toward universal rights gave the new nation a moral foundation that outlasted the original war over taxes. This philosophical legacy is why these 7 milestones remain the core requirements for citizenship today.